Hello, I'm Adin sir, and for the next 10 minutes I'm going to talk about my personal experience and thoughts on Overwatch, and why it will most likely fall flat on its face sooner rather than later. And please don't treat this as a review or anything of the sort. So 6 months ago, when I first played it at a friend's house who had the early beta, it was still new and exciting, and I was hyped for it from BlizzCon. So I played it for a few hours straight and enjoyed my time with the game, and that was the end of that. After 3 months, I got the beta myself and was ready to get good at the game and start making videos for it. But what happened was I played it for an entire day and half of the next day. After that, I never even thought of logging back in. And it's not because the game is bad, the game is actually okay, but nothing more than that. It's merely mediocre in every respect. I say this because of a couple of things, but before I go into that, I just want to say another friend of mine also had the same experience. He played it for 2 days straight and never played it again, even though he had access to it. So why? Well, the simple answer is it lacks any form of complexity and depth except the team-based strategical gameplay. So on to my main points. First, I would like you to remember the disaster of Diablo 3 at launch. Now, I liked that game, I skipped school to play it and I beat it in 1 or 2 days. And same as Overwatch, I never actually played it again until the expansion came out. The problem was not that I finished it fast, but that the experience could have been immensely more enjoyable if they actually cared about making the best game they could. As we all know, money drives Blizzard, business in general, and the entire world, for that matter. So there always comes a time where you must sacrifice something for money. In their case, it happens more than it honestly should, and they sacrifice their games for it frequently. So most people know what happened to Diablo 3. Beside all the real auction house and always online and stuff like that, a few YouTubers that played an early alpha version of the game explained later when the game launched that it was a really different game back then, and in a good way. It resembled Diablo 2 more, in that it had much more complexity in the talent systems, UI and overall character customization. And at least for me, playing that game would have been much better. And at least I would play it multiple times because I would be interested in playing as every class, not just one. And it was obvious from then on that they planned for a console release, which eventually came with the expansion. So for the sake of more copies being sold on the consoles, the game itself suffered. And exactly this is happening to Overwatch. Think of it like this. Overwatch is a mix between two genres, FPS and MOBA. These two genres are exclusive for PC. You simply can't port them over to consoles without huge changes and an overall simplification of the formula. Which brings me to my second point, and the main problem I have with the game. It's too streamlined and simplified, to the extent of just grabbing me and others I know for just 1 or 2 days. For a multiplayer game, that's just unforgivable. It simply can't survive on a model like that. Think of the most popular multiplayer games: League of Legends, Dota and CSGO. Besides being the most popular multiplayer games, they are also one of the most complex, if not the most complex, multiplayer games of all time. This situation reminds me a lot of Titanfall. Even though I didn't play the game, I saw what happened to it. It didn't have much depth and it didn't have much variety. So it just disappeared as soon as it appeared. Let me state an example how this console cross-platform thing is designed to work. In other MOBAs, though I have the most experience with League of Legends, so I'll take examples from that game, and I played it religiously over 3 years ago for about 2 years. So I know my knowledge of the meta is dated, but back then, let's say you had two noobs pick two AD carries. One picks a character like Ashe, which is a beginner character designed to teach the player about the game. The other one picks Vayne, for example, which is one of the hardest AD carries to master, at least back then. And let's assume that they don't counter each other. Let's take the countering part out of the equation. So the players are both new to the game, and it always should go like this. And it usually did. The easy to play, easy to master character, like Ashe, should have the edge over the hard to play, hard to master character, like Vayne. So the noob with Ashe wins more times than the noob with Vayne. However, if they both master their characters, Vayne should win more games because she is harder to master and therefore is designed to be better if mastered, because you put so much time and effort into it. That's all fine. It should be like that, and it is in most games. However, in Overwatch you have, let's say, the same percentage of beginner characters as in other games, though I think that there are more. Anyway, the case here is that with an easy to master character you can absolutely have a 50-50% chance of beating any character in the game in all cases. So whether both are noobs, one is a noob, both are pros or whatever. So you can have someone who plays to their fullest potential be beaten by someone that just presses one button. Either on a console or PC, it doesn't really matter. And I actually talked to someone about this, and the argument came up that they designed it so the difficulty and skill cap comes from team play. But to that I say, so what? In every team game, of course, team skill and cooperation matters a lot. In WoW arenas, in League of Legends, Dota, Counter-Strike, everywhere. But in every other game, individual skill matters the same amount, if not more. So my counter-argument to that was, if you take out half of the game, which is individual skill and 1 vs 1 matchups in a 6 vs 6 game, then you end up with a less than good product. However, that's not exactly being fair. I do think that the game is decent, kinda. Nothing more, nothing less. It was a good idea, and it's realized far less of its full potential that it honestly should have been. And it all comes down to the console release. You simply can't be competitive as a console player versus a PC player in the two genres this game is based on. They are inherently PC games and can only be played on PC. And I would assume that playing it on a console is a good experience. But the UI, the heroes or characters, and the map and object complexity, along with probably some features that got cut, would result in a much better game for the PC. And on to my third and final point. Overwatch has more chance of succeeding than Titanfall, Evolve and similar games, thanks to two things. First is the incredible amounts of hype and marketing Blizz is putting into the game. I don't even remember the last time I saw this much hype for a game. It's just incredible, and it's almost all artificial, which really doesn't matter. Hype, whether it's artificial or real, always helps, of course it does. The second thing it does right is that it introduces back into the mainstream the fast-paced FPS gameplay of the older generation. And on that point, just to mention one more thing, between those two play sessions I had with Overwatch, I installed the 1999 original Unreal Tournament. I was surprised to find out how difficult it was and how much I had to struggle for just beating the first two levels. After half an hour I ended up with my hand hurting and totally confused, as I remembered that as a young 10-year-old boy I got to higher levels and I remember beating most of them. So I asked myself, have the modern games really scarred me that much? Well, yes. I had to relearn everything all over again, and eventually I did end up surpassing my 10-year-old self, with a lot of struggling. And that's on the 5th of 8 difficulty levels. But why does this matter when it comes to Overwatch? It's simple, really. Besides Doom, there hasn't been a game like it in such a long time, not including a few indie titles along the way. And people that played those old games still crave for that fast-paced gameplay with ludicrous weapons and movement. So I had these opinions for a while. Looking at all of it now, I don't think my assessment was or is wrong. But of course, don't trust my word for it. There are so many actual reviews on YouTube that you can watch and make your decision. But to everyone that doesn't have a lot of disposable income like myself, just wait a few weeks or a month and see if it does end up flopping, because you aren't really missing all that much. As I said, the game is mediocre at best and you are missing only the hype. And for everything I said so far, and maybe even something else since I didn't spend much time on it, it does have a high chance of failing. The time I did spend on it was enough to just walk away. That's it for this video, thanks for watching and see you next time.